Oh, yeah.
Bless and love, my lords. Welcome to another PunksTalk powered by Red Lion. I'm joined here today by our co-host
Hey,
Dudley
everyone. Welcome to the show.
and our esteemed guest Artus. Very nice to meet you, sir. How are you, punk?
Very nice to meet you guys. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today and really looking forward to chat with you guys.
Yeah, likewise. We have interacted many times online, but we have never chatted live before. So I love this show for bringing me in touch with so many punks that I didn't have the chance to chat in live. Why don't we go ahead and start with a little bit about your punk story and how did you, what is your punk origin stories? How did you get your punk?
It's a good question. Actually, the punk was one of my first NFTs I bought. Well, the first NFTs actually were, if you consider them NFTs, ENS domains. I think in 2017 when ENS basically launched. CryptoKitties, but I never really, got into NFTs when CryptoPunks were minting. Like back then, I was aware of them, and I've seen them talk. I've seen talk about punks on. I think back in the day, I was relatively active on Reddit in forums like R Trader or R Ethereum, and definitely saw them launch and also read the Mashable article, but it didn't click for me back then, right? And it was something completely different. And fast forward 3-4 years later, beginning of May 2021, I think, is when I bought my punk. And basically, I was more active or getting more active as a lurer, so to say. That was before Artus was basically born. I was just on Twitter and seeing more and more, let's call them OGs, builders, people I've known or followed in that space for a long time. And I've seen more and more of them switching their PFPs on Twitter to CryptoPunks, right? And at that time, I was like, hey, something is happening with these CryptoPunks. And at that point, I dug in, I did the work, I read up on them, and took me 1 or 2 days to pull the trigger and buy my punk. I think it was 20 or 21 ETH at that point. In USD terms, I think it was 40K already or something like that. So I wasn't really early when you, well, it's always a question, what is early, right? But I felt like there's a big thesis behind it, of punks being pretty much the first NFT or the first digital art experiment on chain, where you utilize this new infrastructure, the blockchain, to create scarce digital asset art and manage property rights of your art in that way. And ever since then, I just got more and more bullish on punks.
Man, that's a really cool story. A lot of people came in around that time, around the 2021 ETH mark. But you said you were involved in crypto and you checked the Mashable article early on, but it wasn't for you back then. You didn't understand it, and then a few years later you got into it. But why were you in crypto? What were you doing? What were you up to in the crypto space? How did you end up there?
It's a good question. More or less by accident, you could say. So it was January 2016, and one of my best friends who lives in Bangkok, well, actually Phuket now, but has been living in Thailand for a long time, and was involved in the SEO search engine optimization community and like online poker community, and these sort of networks, particularly also in Thailand, were early adopters of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, just because it was actually useful for them as a online digital currency. You can use cross-border, where particularly also in case of like online poker, you couldn't trust each of the online casinos and moving funds around. So he contacted me in January 2016 and was like, "Hey, there's this thing, Ethereum, ETH, you should buy it." And I heard of Bitcoin, right? Like my first interactions with Bitcoin actually were like a few years before, with my roommate and purchases on darknet marketplaces. But we don't need to talk about these today. But never thought of it until that point. And, like he's one of my best friends, and I always kind of admired him in his kind of, like he had this like sense for new business opportunities, similar to like being involved in SEOing and really ruling that for a few years. So I was like, okay, how do I get involved? And yeah, that's basically how I started my whole journey in crypto back then. So I needed to first buy Bitcoin. I think I'm based in Germany, by the way, if you didn't hear by my accent until now. So 2016, January, beginning of January, I had to buy Bitcoin first. And there was a local kind of P2P exchange, like local Bitcoins, bitcoin.de. So I had to purchase Bitcoin there, and then I had to send Bitcoin to Poloniex, was like one of the only exchanges, doesn't really exist anymore.
It was really cool one. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Like it was the first proper shitcoin casino.
Was it the one with the troll box?
Yeah, man.
So, right?
Yeah, that was amazing. The troll box. They got rid of it eventually, but it was like the best feature of that platform, right?
Yeah. Well, if you could put misinformation in a box, that would be it. The Polonix troll box.
Exactly.
But it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun time back then, definitely. Like, and it was like complete wild.
What other exchanges I sent money to? It was another one called Crypti. You remember that?
Yeah, I think that was New Zealand based, even, or something like that.
Yeah, well, for some reason it allowed me to make account and all of that, which was very difficult at the time. I was finding it really difficult to buy Bitcoin, and Coinbase was not allowed in my region at the time. I was in the Caribbean when I was trying, so it was only US. So I was like, okay, where can I buy it? So there was. I Googled, and every exchange I could find, I would like make an account, try to make a deposit. It was really hard, but yeah, I don't even know if I have any money in all of these probably dead exchanges.
Yeah, I know.
That was the time, right?
Yeah, that was like I loved that time back then, and I mean I was really naive, right? I didn't know pretty much anything about cryptocurrency, and that's where like my journey and like the whole learning curve started. And
I mean, who knew, man? Like back then, who knew it started like 2008, 2009, up until 2013. It was just like super programmers or super developers interested in very experimental stuff. After that, I mean, 2013 onwards, here we are, like let's say the more basic users, and still it's not mainstream, right?
Yeah. On the one hand, I agree, and then like we're still not mainstream, and there's still so many obstacles to like bring it to proper mainstream adoption, particularly on the like UX side, but also when it comes to how to manage security properly, right? With all the hacks ongoing and increasing. But at the same time, when you remember how it was back in the day, man, we came a long way, and I could have never imagined that like us today here in this Twitter space talking about this whole ecosystem and what kind of flourished out of all of that. It's pretty incredible to think back. And like when I was buying my first Ethereum on Poloniex. Like what we knew already back then is, hey, get your shit off the exchanges, right? Like hold your own keys. So that was something people already, well, some knew, my friend at least, and like advised me like, okay, get it off Poloniex. And really the first wallet back in the day was, I think it was Mist wallet. There was, I mean, Ethereum just launched a few months before then, right? It was like the Frontier Network State or whatever it was called. There was basically nothing, no smart contracts, no dApps, just that Mist wallet. And actually, that was like you had to run a full node. I had no idea what a full node is, right? So you actually run a node of the actual blockchain network and be a peer in that network, which basically means you download the whole transaction history and then you're online and syncing the whole time. And, you know, I had my MacBook Pro, and every time I opened that wallet, it had to sync the whole blockchain. And it was just like frozen for a complete day.
That's how it was. Even with Bitcoin wallets, you needed to have to run a complete node, download the whole chain, and that was like the safest way to store it. But there have been better solutions and hot wallets since then, and the market progressed really well. But still, did you see yesterday, or is it today? Kevin Rose got hacked. He got his wallet exploited and
So
lost so
really
much.
shit.
Yeah. Well, all those NFTs lost. They are from one of the best vaults in the space, and just with one click gone. So obviously, we've gone a long way, but we have even further long to go. You know.
Yeah. I like it really sucks for Kevin and so many other people. And, you know, I think there's like a big advantage to like self-custodying your assets. And I like to do it, but at the same time, right, there's always also that kind of brisk mingling over you and like, oh shit, is my setup right? And like once they're gone, you can't really do much. And with centralized partner that advocate for them in particular, but there is sort of like an insurance policy where, you know, okay, this is a service provider and there potentially even is a service agreement or insurance behind it. All I'm saying with that is that UX, particularly on the security side, needs to evolve in the future. And if you've seen that even like the OGs and people who are basically experts and have been here for years are still getting hacked or are getting hacked, it just shows that like we're dealing with a complete new kind of paradigm, right, when it comes to that infrastructure. And I think it will still take some time for us to really figure it out. And hackers, there's more and more like the pie of potential exploits is increasing every day. So exploiters also making their homework and getting about new ways. All in all, I think key messages for the assets you really value: have a cold wallet, hardware wallet you don't touch, you don't sign anything with it. And right, you still sometimes have these opportunities. Okay, you hold these assets like a punk and you can claim something here. Is it really worth it? And there's always this consideration. But for me, I decided, okay, I will not sign anything anymore with my ledger.
Did you have any connection with art before you got involved in depth with NFTs, or did the NFTs lead you towards art?
Well, my wife is a art gallerist and holds a PhD in art. So by marriage and law, I do have some connection to it. But I was never like professionally involved in art before, and I was never like a big physical art collector. That's like what my wife is doing, right? Like our house is full of art. It's also a part of
What does she like to collect? What does she like to collect?
Yeah, so she specializes actually in lithography, like special printing techniques. So she also back in the day wrote her master thesis on it, and it's also a certain focus of a PhD. So that's definitely one of the kind of main favors. But we have a lot of like different cool art, and she's also working as an agent for a few artists in Europe, and currently also having a pretty exciting project with a artist from this region here, who's a sculptor, and he creates these like amazing sculptures which are huge, like 20-30 meters, like very high detail. And the project she's working on now, it's called Sisyphus. Sisyphus is like a particularly kind of image of that statue, and they plan to actually also launch an NFT connected to that statue, because each fragment, like the statue, will have different fragments, 32 fragments, and each will be, 5 meters tall, more or less. And they actually plan to make a high resolution 3D model of that whole statue and each fragment, and sell the digital equivalent with it, with the option to actually also get it made in real life if you want it and if you have enough space for such a huge piece. But it's pretty cool to see her also going that way slowly. Yeah.
But when you found NFTs, you started getting more into art, and did your wife notice a change in you towards art? How was it?
Yeah, definitely. So I, as mentioned, like my CryptoPunk purchase was really what made me go down that rabbit hole. And it's funny, like looking back, right? Like a lot of people were always kind of smiling on like, Bitcoin, digital scarcity, a new form of like digital money. It's kind of laughable. Same thing happened to kind of like Ethereum, smart contract infrastructure, these kind of projects. Same happened to NFTs, and always we are mistaking a lot of like new disruptive technologies as toys, and that's basically how they started out. And in a way, I think that's also how NFT with CryptoPunks started out. But yeah, after I made my homework on that punk and digged into that space and saw what has been or what is being created, I actually went down a bit into the whole generative art rabbit hole. And generative art was my focus of collecting digital art. After that, I also joined some generative art membership clubs. One of the first one was at the Gen.art, which was pretty cool. That's also where I met my co-founder. Actually, one of our co-founders is here tonight, 0xUX in the audience. Hi, honey. Another co-founder of us who's at From, our project, developing the whole infrastructure around 3D art and every aspect on the front end and those products. And he was one of the first artists with Gen.art to do a drop, and I connected with him in that community. And yeah, a few months later, pitched him our idea. Let's do virtual frames. They seem to be missing in the digital kind of art space. And yeah, 1 year later, we're basically sitting here. And actually today we have pretty cool news, since we got the check for our pre-seed funding with the company just today. The money arrived. So little milestone for us in our journey with our project.
That's great, man. But let's take it from the beginning. Let's talk a little bit about From Art that you just mentioned. So, what do you guys do, and what is your mission?
So From, we are the Metaverse frame maker, and basically the idea of for that project and for what we are doing came in a discussion with my wife, where we looked at NFTs, digital art, and these virtual galleries, and also explored kind of ways of showcasing, exhibiting NFTs in her art gallery. And we like talking about frames, right? But like these digital frames for NFTs in the physical world, like token frame and such, atomic frames. And eventually kind of made that leap to, hey, there's no proper frames or concept of a frame in these virtual galleries like OnCyber, Spatial. When you like go to OnCyber and you go into, I don't know, for example, the Art Blocks curation gallery by Von Mises, and there's just fidenzas, ringers all over the place, and like it looks like they're just slapped against the wall. Not to like it still looks good and is cool, right? But it seems like there's some bond missing between actually that virtual environment and the frame itself, right? And the art piece itself. And this is kind of that function a frame can bring, where it actually kind of like creates that bond between kind of that environment and the piece, and actually drawing attention and highlighting that piece, and like attaching some kind of value to it and directing the attention of the observer to that piece in a certain way. And yeah, based out of that idea in, I think it was like November 2021, so a bit more than a year ago, we were like, hey, let's just try to do a project around virtual frames and mint them as NFTs, whatever that means. We didn't have any idea. And yeah, our vision evolved since then. So our vision and mission is basically to give artists, creators, collectors, and virtual galleries the frames they deserve. So that's sort of the mission statement. And we really want to help enhance the value and appeal of exhibiting art in these virtual environments with premium frames, with custom frames. Our thesis is that the digital art space, particularly also the gallery space, will be down the line, 50 years, 100 times bigger than the physical digital gallery space, because there are no limitations to the digital space, right? Similar to like our house here becoming kind of the warehouse, and art is kind of crammed into little cabinets and like hidden away, and like we don't have enough space anymore. There's not enough wall space in our home to display all of this art. And like in the metaverse and virtual world, you just don't have that problem. Like you have infinite wall space basically, and anybody can become a gallery and host a gallery, like a privilege actually not that many have in the physical world, but you can like curate kind of your art and showcase it to a world in a certain way, and exhibit it. And there's new possibilities in the virtual world. So I think similar to most people also here in that space, we have that belief that we're just at the beginning of a very, very large journey, and that this whole kind of digital realm and what we define as meta space, we're just at the very beginning of it. And I see us increasingly living or moving more and more aspects of our life into the digital world. Yeah, that's what we're doing from the Metaverse Framemaker. There's different elements to our platform. I think one is if you're an artist and want to talk about getting a custom frame, we're happy to help you. I see that with Artus here, we recently did a project with him. Check it out. And yeah, then there's the frame development kit, our FDK. That's basically sort of our own toolbox, which allows anybody to create cool custom 3D frames and mint them as an NFT without any 3D modeling experience and such. You raise your hand, red line.
That's very interesting, and congratulations for your project hitting a big milestone. You received pre-seed funding, and congratulations for taking the time to build a frame project. Many people disregard it, but as you said, it's very important to be able, now that we have all this nice and fine digital art, to be able to display it properly on a digital environment. And the frames actually help do that. And they are definitely connected with our perception of art. It is part of the art for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's definitely it's called a niche project still. I think even a lot of people who are very active in that space, they're not aware that we exist. And to be fair, we haven't really done a lot of marketing. Like we were focusing on building out our core infrastructure, which I think is now in a good place. So I think it's fair to assume that you will hear more from us.
Hmm. Can you give us a
future.
little bit more of an insight how things work? Is it like a product that's facing galleries and big projects, or it's a product that also can be used by people and artists? So how do you see it working?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that's a challenge we generally need to do better in the future to kind of over communicate what we do, how it works, and what are the possibilities. Um, let's start with kind of our main vision is to be the Metaverse frame maker and enable you basically as a collector of digital art or artist who creates digital art to use our frames wherever you want to showcase your art in the virtual world. So our frames are 3D digital frames, so they are 3D objects.
Are they
And
GLB files?
they are GLB files at the moment, exactly. And our key objective in kind of that direction is to be maximum compatible with all the NFT or digital gallery infrastructure, digital gallery spaces. And that means right now, when you're in On Cyber or when you're in a gallery like Spatial, they support GLBs as 3D objects. You can load them in without any issues. And this is also, I think, where the NFT comes in and where it makes sense to have them also tokenized as NFT as a digital good, a scarce digital good is the NFT really is kind of like the API, right? NFTs are supported as sort of a gateway to display something. This can be a picture or also a 3D object, and you can easily just load it in since they just need to call kind of the information metadata of the NFT. And yeah, that's why our frames are tokenized as NFTs, and they are GLB files, 3D objects. And we are in discussions with these galleries to see how we can improve sort of the user experience, the whole kind of framing journey, meaning you have one of our frames and you have a piece and you want to frame it inside there. It's still a bit kind of rough around the edges since you need to more or less manually kind of move the frame when you in your editor of setting up your gallery. You need to place your artwork against the wall, and then you need to place the frame at the wall at another place, and then manually move it over. And yeah, it takes a little bit of practice to do it quickly and easily, but I think there's definitely room for improvements.
It will definitely optimize further in the future. I mean,
Yeah,
this
we
is
hope
brand
so.
new technology, first iteration. I'm very impressed and curious, of course, how this will turn out. Because we've heard about digital framings in real life and like, like frames with a screen, basically.
Yeah.
But I never thought about digital frames. And their importance. So I'm really curious to see how it's going to play out. And do you have any plans to expand to digital frames? I mean, like those screens in real life later on.
We definitely have a big backlog of ideas, but we're still a small team, so we have to really prioritize kind of where we spend our focus and energy on. But something which I really think is exciting, what you just mentioned, is kind of like bridging the whole virtual to the physical world and back, and we had conversations with Token Frame and others briefly to kind of, hey, this is cool what you're doing, this is cool what you're doing. It just makes sense to kind of see how we can collaborate in the future. So I think this is something we kind of look into with partners who are established in that market. But there's also other angles we are considering where we want to try out in the future to, I don't know if you check out our frames, we have some which are resembling more kind of what you know from the traditional physical world, but we are getting more and more into creating frames which can't really exist in the physical world, just based on kind of like physics and gravity and stuff like that, like our SimCity frames and some other frames. But we're getting
the frames themselves are art, what I see.
That's kind of our
approach,
our value approach, our proposition that we do create premium frames and there's an artistic side to it. To mention here, our very first frames we created was the from Genesis collection back in May last year, and all those frames in that collection were actually created via a generative art algorithm, so by a computer program basically. Our co-founder Lucas, which I mentioned, who's a generative artist, I met him in the generative art community, basically built the infrastructure and wrote that script. So all of each frame in that collection was generated by the algorithm, which is pretty cool. It was kind of like its own the project in itself, coming up with new frame styles, but also generating them by an algorithm itself. So that's something I think we are proud of, that we were able to launch that collection back in May last year. And we do have some pretty good collectors on board who discovered us.
I see here on your feed you have one artwork by Pia, who we also had a live interview with. She does amazing art, and we talked about that humanoid form and puppeteering that she does. And now I see the frame here around the artwork, and it's definitely adding positively to it. And yeah, it's a custom made frame. You only see this when you buy art like in real life. I mean, you only see this when you buy an artwork from an artist that he also included the frame into the concept. So you're right. The things we can do with in the digital realm, expanding onto frames, is mind blowing. And those proof of concepts, basically those art frames that cannot exist in real life, is just mere examples that what you can do with it, right?
Exactly. And even us, we're just starting to scratch the surface, I think, of what we can do and want to do. So I think one project we're currently starting to explore, and which has been something always kind of like feedback from our early users and community, was like, hey, what about animated frames? Can you do that? Right, where you bring animation into that frame. So this is, I think, something we're exploring now to see, okay, what are the options we can do, when there's a whole new way of how you can interact between the frame and the artwork. But also you will have some technical challenges as well, on the other hand, particularly when you want to be maximum interoperable, meaning you need to work within what is allowed within kind of a GLB file type. What kind of animations can you bring in there? Another big consideration in that respect is then also how big can this GLB file in its size actually be to be easily usable in these galleries, because the more kind of 3D objects you load into it, the more kind of clunky the user experience gets, and the more kind of load is on the server. So that's also some consideration there. Another project we're also starting to explore is using AI to create frames, kind of either text to frame basically, or text to image to 3D frame. So we're just starting kind of looking around what would be options to actually.
You're playing with AI. You're playing with AI. I see. Yeah,
it's fun, man.
It's amazing. What do you think about it? How is it changing the world, and how do you see it from the inside out and from the outside in?
It's pretty crazy, and I think I also have been sleeping on it for a long time, and you would always hear kind of like AI is a big disruptor in the future, but there didn't seem to be really something tangible for many people, like myself included, for a long time, where you just would make it so obvious, kind of right, the application of it to certain use cases. And I think when you use these AI art tools for image creation like DALL-E or Midjourney, and you see how they're just creating based on the prompts you give them some
They are
crazy art
insane.
is pretty insane. But then as well, the whole kind of language models with um, applications like ChatGPT and ChatGPT is pretty crazy. I was actually playing around yesterday.
Since yesterday it's overloaded, cannot work.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of users, but at the same time, like I saw some tweets around kind of estimations how much money they're burning pretty much each day. I think it's millions to support the infrastructure. So they definitely need to.
They will scale it up, but I remember I was reading some statistics. I did a tweet how fast they reached 5 million users, and it was incredible. No other company has ever reached that many users so fast. So it's really something that is changing the world.
It's pretty crazy.
It's going to be crazy.
I think we still don't know really where you can really apply it and how it can help you. There's so many ways. Like just yesterday, I was also talking to a friend who's working in the kind of search engine optimization, or comes from that background, and he's basically using ChatGPT to build content for complete websites, like domains he doesn't know anything about, like a website, like an expert website on Go.
Yeah, you can outrank everybody with it. We were just watching some videos how to outrank other news agencies on Google. So yeah, well, Steven was taking notes, and now we are going to attack. So full on attack mode, make Red Line News number one. No mercy, it's really interesting. But what you had to pay around $5,000 in humans for SEO, now it's like a 3-hour task, so it is. We don't know how SEO is going to change forever now, and what Google is going to be doing to be flagging AI content. So it's going to be crazy. One very interesting application, I don't know if I should mention, but why not? Fuck it. One interesting application I was reading about just today was generative porn. So like text to porn, and like how well, think about it. There's no humans that have to do it, and it can be exactly what you want to see, right? And like the algorithm can learn your taste and probably create it like not only on the fly, but give you a few different. I don't know.
It's pretty crazy when you also spin it, kind of, and imagine what is the hardware gonna be like for these use cases in, like, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years. Like I'm not an expert in that domain, but when you just imagine kind of like virtual reality headsets or complete suits, right, which can also kind of stimulate like your senses, and not just on a visual basis, or even thinking further, like a few years, and thinking about kind of what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink, creating kind of brain-computer interfaces where you can actually stimulate directly through the brain certain like body areas. And I think that will happen over the long term, or I don't know how long, but it's going to be pretty crazy. And then when you think about kind of, okay, you're training an AI in real life, basically on your sexual preference in that case, that is a use case I think many people will pay for.
Yeah, and I think we also did since early on, since it came up, we did a few covers with AI. Actually, at the beginning, when it wasn't good, we were using it only to like sketch ideas fast. Then we started using it to get some elements on the cover. I think on some covers, and then on issue 120, we used it to generate all these Renaissance
Yeah.
paintings. Dudley knows better, but it's so good, right? It's like such a tool. It's so amazing. And now the punk book that we are doing, it wasn't possible. Like when we came up with the idea, I remember I was chatting about it in the punks Discord, and I was like, yeah, it would be cool somehow to generate the stories. And there wasn't AI, way back we were talking about punk bios because it wasn't a brand new idea, of course. And yeah, since the first iteration of GPT-3 was out, I was trying to make those, and they were coming out semi good. And I was like, okay, I think we can do it. It needed a lot of effort because you couldn't ask do this, and that's what it was doing. I had to like type a little bit of text. It would complete it. Then I would like try to neutrally curate. So I was like trying to uh, let it give out the ideas, not me feeding them. But then Chat GPT-3 came out and revolutionized the game, and now we can do like collaborative books with a lot of people providing the input, but nobody is writing the story. And this is completely brand new, and we are like we found ourselves in the middle of it head first, and we couldn't be more excited about it. But yeah, anyway, let's go back into the NFTs. And you have a long tenure in the crypto and NFT space. And we heard you talk very well about your experiences and how you got into crypto and NFTs, your punk buy. What is one thing you really, really love about the NFT space, and what is something you would like to see less in the NFT space?
It's a good question. To be honest, what I really like and what I'm just also discovering is engaging more and more with active participants in that space, and kind of seeing all these individuals from different countries with different backgrounds, developers, artists, even anarchists, right? From kind of coming from Bitcoin and self-sovereign currency to digital art or art in itself, and all of that space kind of converges with so many like-minded people, which all kind of push forward in that general same direction, pushing the ecosystem forward. And being involved in that has been a really amazing experience for me so far. And that's why I was really glad and I really appreciate to be here today, to have the opportunity to participate more, be more active, like share my thoughts in discussions with you guys, learn from you, learn new backgrounds. And that's also something we are trying to do more with Fram as well, where we also trying to be more active, engage more. We had a Twitter space recently with Hearts here, who is in the audience, and getting to know his background, his story, and seeing that, hearing that was pretty amazing. And also actual 3D Punks is here, who created a pretty cool, unique project around punks. And if you want to get your punk in a 3D version, go check this project out. And Just so many really cool people when you dig in. And I have been like a lurker in that space for a long time, right? I started in 2016 when I entered that space, but it always has been more passive on my side. I mean, I did kind of like, we started a non-profit
Don't beat
association
yourself.
here.
I think most of people are a little bit more passive in the space, or that has been the case until now. Do you remember in early internet days, nobody was buying anything from the internet and you wouldn't put your real name anywhere? And that completely changed. And now that was the case with crypto. Everybody wanted to be anonymous, and then everybody wanted to be pseudonymous and famous.
Yeah.
Now nobody gives a shit. They just want to be famous. I don't care. So it's changing, and a lot of people, you know, are into crypto doesn't mean they want to be social, but the people who are socially into crypto is it's the most hardcore core of the ecosystem for sure.
Sure is, but it's also very rewarding. And like the people you meet and the connections is
Yeah,
pretty cool. Similar to what
it
I mentioned,
matters.
like
It changes your life
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Also, like like I like one of the first like Discord communities I was active in, the Gen.art, met my co-founder, right, Lucas, right in there,
Mm.
and that's sort of how it can go. That's what I would like to like also advise anybody is just be more out there, be more active. It's very rewarding. It's fun. It's cool to
Just put
participate.
yourself out there,
Yeah.
educate yourself, learn to learn, be curious, and yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we also preach here, and why we made the project. Just, just be curious to mint some art, to collect something, and in the end, you will be rewarded. When a lot of people started using DeFi and some services, and then came the airdrops, and then the prices went up, and a lot of those people were just there because they were curious, they were testing. So I think that's Ethereum showed us the way that being proactive and adding value into the community is always rewarded, or most of the times at least. And
Yes.
that's a new model, like
Yes.
selfish altruism, and it's really really something with Ethereum. And also with CryptoPunks, of course. Has your life changed since you became a CryptoPunk, and how?
Well, Artus was born basically. So Artus is also my, it's called artistic name, pseudonym, right, for Artus Fun Farm. And I basically created that account when we started with Ram like a year ago. And yeah, that has been a pretty cool experience to create this pseudonym, a digital identity, which is not my identity attached to my like normal personal life and all of that history. So it's just Artus, the content he puts out, the people he engages with, and that has been very interesting. And sometimes it's kind of hard, because
I wanted to ask about that. That it's not your real name; it's the persona you created, right?
yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah. Artus actually means frame in Latin.
Oh, so where did your fascinations for frames come? How did you get into frames?
Well, my wife for her gallery works with a traditional frame maker, like this 65, well, almost 70-year-old German who has been creating frames by hand for 40 years. And he's her frame maker, basically, creating frames for the gallery, for pieces, for people come in and hey. And in the traditional world, like a lot of like visitors in that gallery, they come with a art piece they like, and they want to get that right frame, right? Because they say, hey, this is one of my favorite pieces. I want to put this in that right frame. And this is then where like he comes into play or she together with him, where they consult on sort of what do you write? Let's look for the right option for that particular piece, and then basically build a custom frame around it. And it's not like I have been deeply fascinated my whole life for frames. I have been getting into frames quite bigly since 1 year, and I create many frames daily, basically. And at that point, I also have to say that it's pretty amazing to see the progress we made. Like we built our own tooling to create 3D frames. So we have our own internal tool, which allows us to create frames, our frame development kit. So there's an internal version for it. We call it the FDK, and we basically still building that out. Like we enriching it with more and more features and more functionality. And at the beginning, when we started out, we started creating frames, and they look very basic. Like when you look at our website, we did this sort of marketing video, which is pretty cool, where you actually see that traditional frame maker in there as well. We involved him in shooting the video. And our virtual frames were quite basic at that point, and they took a while to create. And now we built our infrastructure, and I can create really, really nice custom frames within a few seconds now. And this is where we really kind of also go into a new path where we can scale premium and custom frames in the sort of metaverse in a way which is just not possible in the traditional world. And I think this is also where I like to promote a bit our FDK, which when you go to our website, you can go click create your own frame and start playing around, and you can load your NFT, or you can connect your wallet, load an NFT into it, or just load anything from your computer into it and can start playing around, choosing a frame style, editing that frame style, and see for yourself, download a high-res image. It's a pretty cool tool, and I hope that in that future, or basically our goal is that we create a sort of a light version of that into each gallery eventually and set a standard for framing. So you are in on
maybe collaborations with big artists to make their own frames. I mean, sky's the limit.
Yes,
I'm sure you will take it in many directions, but how can someone get in touch and get involved? Do you have a Discord?
Yeah, we have a Discord.
Is it the best way for a community to come to chat with you and learn more about the project?
Yeah, definitely. If you want to chat, exchange ideas, feel free to join our Discord. We have a humble, small community, but a lot of like believers since our early Genesis days. And I really like, we talk sometimes in the team that we actually have not the most kind of active community, but we have like people involved since we basically started, and none of them basically like we're also not kind of like a hype project, right, where we need to deliver utility.
Yeah, it's a project that has a mission. Yeah, it's a project that has a mission. It doesn't need hype, right? You just need to deliver and have fun and be involved in what you do.
Exactly. I think one thing we're trying to do more of is making frames cool. So that's something we're working on and trying to figure that out. But yeah, reach out to me on Twitter, join our Discord. Happy to interact with anybody and happy to chat.
For sure. And also, let me plug our Discord here. If you also love another little community, as he said, we are building. Actually, no, we are not building. A little Yugoslavian core has started to form in our server. So if you like to have fun, come join us. And yeah, get in touch also with us. We will link you in the frame server if you want to go learn more, and in general every project that we talk here weekly, and all the wonderful people that we meet. So yeah, come have some fun for sure. I don't know, Dudley, if you have any questions or any of the audience would like to raise a hand.
Hey, Hey, did you know that I was actually in the framing business?
Really?
I was the product manager for a company called Nielsen. It's a German company making aluminum frames, and I was in a company in a child company in Czech Republic, and I was really deep into frames. I was studying thousands of profiles, so I would wonder whether Artus is going into like real shops or framing shops, studying frames and. And I knew there's like a Spanish, Italian, which are really heavy on this antique frame. So how is it?
It's amazing seeing you come from the traditional framing world. Actually, we should chat sometime and like get some of your ideas. It would be amazing to get some feedback. And yeah, my wife actually, when I asked her, kind of, hey, you know, any like frame manufacturers in Germany we could talk to and see if there's potential for collabs. And she also mentioned Nielsen, it is right.
Oh wow!
They are specialized for aluminium allox.
Yeah.
It's
You
more
know, for the legendary gazettes, Dudley, we were talking. Oh, we wanted to feel more premium, and we were talking about having a
we want
digital frame on it.
yeah,
Remember?
exactly. It's just a flat one. It's not
Mm.
but that's something that we have in our roadmap to implement. But yeah, we're still shoveling out the basics.
Well, one by one, but we already thought about it. Yeah, I just remember.
Yeah, but I'm like super heavy on frames, and I visited many fairs. Also in Germany, in Frankfurt, it's paper wall.
Nice.
So yeah, and I was basically making deals through his suppliers.
Frame shop Quarbo, yeah.
Yeah, also art supplies, but frames mainly. So yeah, we can definitely get in touch, and I'm super impressed by your product. Is there anything that you struggled with that was some obstacle or some hiccups on the product side?
I think what we initially struggled with sort of was okay, from going from that idea of okay, let's just try to do something with frames and turn that into kind of that vision we have of actually creating a proper platform to be the metaverse frame maker. I think there's many challenges we are still facing. Particularly, I think what's on my mind is the usability in these virtual galleries, to make it as easy and as smooth as possible to have that framing experience. And unfortunately, in most cases, that will only be possible if there's sort of a native integration on that gallery side. Yeah, we do talk to all of the big galleries with traction, and when you look at kind of what they are building, it's pretty amazing to see also the speed of such as OnSite or Monaverse or Spatial, how they're adding feature. And I think we are at that point where it's sort of a chicken egg thing, where we still need to build our own infrastructure out and build more reference cases and be out there to drive demand, be more known, to justify that, okay, we as the gallery can spend the effort of our team now to integrate that. And I think one role model where I always look to when it comes to these, what I call them horizontal integrations, horizontally meaning you are integrated in many different kind of platforms with your product in a certain way, is in the virtual world we're looking at is Ready Player Me, the avatars. So a 3D avatar, one platform, and it integrates into so many different games and metaverse galleries, and they are basically setting the standard for your virtual avatars in these worlds. And it's very easy if you're one of these galleries to integrate. You look at the developer documentation and you can just get started. And that's where eventually I hope we can take from to really set that standard for integration.
Yeah, got it.
Wonderful.
About voxel, there a problem with, or are you planning on supporting voxel export? Maybe some simple ones. I don't know.
I haven't looked into that yet, but there's many sort of things we want to, like in the roadmap, we want to look how we are best compatible, and yeah, Vox is definitely one of them.
All right, wonderful. Well, I would like to thank you for coming in today to chat, and also invite you in the future. Um, like a few months later down the line, just come back and let's chat again. What you're up to and how's it going? Who are you in the future?
Would really appreciate it, and yes, thank you so much for having me here today, getting to know you, and love to connect and discuss collabs, getting feedback from Doodly and you, and see where we can collab in the future would be pretty nice.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Well, thanks everyone for joining our show today. Tomorrow we have another super interesting PunksTalk for you. We are talking with Han RGB, the artist, and CryptoPunks. So it's going to be another interesting talk. I am personally looking forward to. So if you would like to join, just set your reminders, give us a like on Twitter, and come to us on Discord. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Bye bye.
Have a great one.
Yeah. See you guys. Bye bye.